What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to your stimulus package update and daily news report for Saturday, March 12th. Now, we have been in this pandemic for 2 years. Yesterday was our 2-year anniversary, and as of right now, the American people still have as many questions today as we did 2 years ago. The differences, though, are 2 years ago we were wondering about, well, how long will we be in this kind of state of emergency? How long are we supposed to stay locked in our homes? We can't go out to restaurants because they're closed down. We can't go out to stores because they have very limited supply. And so those were the questions 2 years ago. Now it's a little bit different. Now it's we can't go to restaurants because they're too expensive. We can't go to stores because we are still seeing supply chain issues. Staying in our homes, that sounds like a good idea. The problem is we either outgrew our homes over the past 2 years and there's no new homes to buy because they are too expensive, or the next thing, which is very difficult as well, is staying in our homes is also expensive because, well, we have to heat the home or cool the home, right? We got to pay for the home. All these things are getting more and more expensive, and that's where the American people are asking for some relief. Just provide some relief. Again, we have inflation at 7.9%. That came out this past week. But what you need to keep in mind is this might not be the peak. So things are expected to get more expensive. Just keep that in mind. Now, before I get into this update, I want to let you know first and explain what is about to happen. Because President Biden made it very clear yesterday in a statement that he gave to Democrats, because over the past few months, let's just be honest, Democrats have been talking about their chances of winning more seats in the House and the Senate in the upcoming midterm elections. But again, if we look at all the polls, if we look at the statements that people make, not just on this channel, but across other YouTube channels and other social media outlets as well, Republicans are likely to take over the majority, both in the House and the Senate. Now, this is a major problem for Democrats because they do not want to back President Biden into a wall, which is essentially what will happen. And this is what President Biden said yesterday, and he made his intentions very clear. He said if Republicans gain control over the House and Senate, as President Biden put it, he stated, "The only thing I'll have then is my veto pen." That's it. Because guess what? Republicans are going to do whatever they can. Again, and I absolutely hate this about politics, but what they're going to do is do whatever they can to make President Biden look bad. And again, I understand the Republican side of it because they want to get a Republican president into the office, into the Oval Office. Well, how do you do that? You make the current president look bad. Guess what? Nancy Pelosi did that same thing with former President Donald Trump. Like, he couldn't get much passed because Nancy Pelosi said, no, that's not what we want to do. Let's keep negotiating, and she drug out that stimulus package for so long. Former President Donald Trump, he ended up losing the election. Some say it was stolen, but whatever, right? Let's get past that. He ended up losing, and then it wasn't until the end of that year, right, like a month and a half later, that the bill actually passed, right after Christmas. And so that's the big thing, is we're going to see these political games. Now, this is the exact same worry that Senator Bernie Sanders had about a year ago as well. He stated that if Republicans win the House and the Senate, then passing any legislation at that point is going to be very unlikely because Democrats are going to be the minority. We'll have Republicans as the majority in the House and the Senate. Again, they would need to get both. But all the polls show Democrats are just going to get wiped this coming midterm election. So here's what you need to understand. What this means is if it's almost seen as a very unlikely situation that any legislation will pass over the next 2 years. Okay? Because what's going to happen is the House and the Senate, if they come under a Republican control majority, then they're going to pass their bills. President Biden, if he doesn't like them or Democrats don't like them, he's going to veto those bills. Well, then they'll just go right back. So this means that right now, COVID relief must pass before then. That's something that Democrats really want, Republicans say it's not really needed because they want to know where all the money that was allocated to COVID, where that all went, because they have no idea. And Democrats are a little bit iffy as to where it went as well. We also know that stimulus to the economy and the American people, this must pass before the midterm elections as well. This must be negotiated and passed, which takes time. We've been working on this Build Back Better Act for what, good 6 months, 7 months? Can't get anywhere with it. And any big Democratic priorities must be included before then as well. So this includes, parts of the Build Back Better Act, like the child tax credit payments, things like the paid family medical leave, expanded Medicare, student loan forgiveness, right? Climate. All these things are included. But that's where things get very questionable is, when are we going to see these pass? Again, this is the beginning of March, or actually, we're almost the middle of March, actually. Okay? We have until November. So we got March, we got April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. We got 8 months. 8 months to get this done, to get something done. But the expectation is, if Democrats don't get something done by the middle of the summer at the latest, they won't have enough time to really, go and campaign on these things that they did. And trying to get something done with Republican support that close to an election isn't going to happen. So just understand, we probably have about 4 months. 4 months to get everything done. And this is the reason why this is so critical, is because right now, guess what's going to be still taking place in 4 months? According to the expectations, okay, according to reports, even if this war between Russia and Ukraine, even if this subsides and kind of simmers down, goes away, right? Even if this does, the aftermath of this war is still going to be impacting the entire world. We will still be impacted here in the United States in 4 months. So guess what? This is why more and more lawmakers are calling for additional relief to the American people. But again, it's not just coming from a stimulus check. It's coming from maybe a stimulus check, maybe tax credits, rebates, removing the gas tax, right? All these different provisions. And so that's what I want to keep you up to date on, is right now, it's not as simple as, here's a check, there you go. It's not that easy, not anymore. Because of inflation, because of gas prices, because of everything that lawmakers are trying to work on. And this is a lot, okay? Because right now there's a lot that Congress should be working on, but at the same time, many are worried about what is still to come. We don't know exactly how fast the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates, but we will know this week. Because on the 16th, okay, in 4 days, so 4 days, yeah, on the 16th, okay, this coming Wednesday, we will have a good idea as to what the Federal Reserve is going to do, because chances are they're going to raise rates on the 16th. That's going to be a very, very important day. So mark that on your calendar. Now, we don't know what inflation is going to do. We don't know when it's going to start to trend downward. Is it still going to go up? That's the expectation. Some expect it's going to go to 9 to 10%. We could see it over 10% before it somewhat flatlines and then comes back down. So we'll see what goes on there. But here's something else that's very concerning as well, is we're starting to see the short-term treasury yields exceed those with longer terms. And when this happens, what normally precedes this is a downturn, okay? A recession. Goldman Sachs, even just this week, stated that they're putting a U.S. recession at about 35%. And many economists predict that the coming weeks will dictate whether a recession is more likely or less likely. And this is going to come in and show based off of what the Federal Reserve does, okay? What goes on with Russia and Ukraine, what happens with gas prices, right? The consumer sentiment right now is not good. Consumers, even though we're still spending, it's slowing down. And at some point, the expectation is, okay, or not the expectation, the prediction, is that we will see consumers continue to spend, but eventually it's going to go from spend to not just slowly coming back down. It's going to go from spend to I got no money, can't spend anything. That's the prediction. If that happens, you can almost guarantee a recession. Okay? But again, all these things are putting more pressure on Congress to not only provide for the American people and our economy, but to ensure that things don't get worse. And how do we do that? That's the tough question. And that's something that nobody knows. We don't know. We can't get an idea as to, okay, if we provide, let's say, the child tax credit payments to only those hardest hit families, how can we do that without creating more inflation? How can we do that? Because right now lawmakers aren't worried about being fair. That's not what they're worried about. They want to make sure our economy is stable. They want to make sure that inflation isn't going to run away. They want to make sure that gas prices come down. But gas prices, yes, they impact inflation. But guess what they also do? That's the number one thing. I drive down the street, and just to give you an idea, I take a detour. I don't go the same way I normally do, because guess what? I want to drive down in front of the gas station. It's weird, but I now take a different route when I go places because I want to drive in front of the gas station to see how much gas prices are. So guess what? The American people, they're looking at the same thing, gas prices. Gas prices, according to experts, are going to dictate who wins the midterm elections. Is it going to be Republican or Democrats? Right now, with gas prices where they're at, everybody says Republicans. So we'll see. Now, one thing that we do know is that right now there's more and more pressure on our economy because of the conflicts coming from Russia. And here's what's happening. And again, this is interesting, but this is also a warning that companies had for years. Is Russia just yesterday threatened to nationalize departed American companies? And by doing this, what it does is it would make it almost impossible for companies, or any of these companies, but a lot of these companies like Nike and McDonald's, Apple, right, other big names, to really come back. Even Mercedes-Benz. Just to give you an idea, Mercedes-Benz yesterday said that if Russia nationalizes, what's going to happen is Mercedes has about $2.2 billion in assets sitting there. They would lose them. Okay? So what would happen is these companies would have a very difficult time continuing operating their businesses in Russia. But we also know that many of these companies have billions of dollars on the line, just like I stated with Mercedes-Benz, which means that they could lose their assets. They could simply lose them. They'd be under Russian control. And in this likely scenario, again, this is likely. And the likely scenario moving forward from this would be that these companies would slightly increase prices elsewhere in order to make up the losses that they are experiencing over in Russia. So again, if this happens, the bad news is it would impact us here in the United States. Now, in other news, I just want to remind you on this that tomorrow morning, okay, make sure you turn your clocks ahead. If you do participate in daylight savings time, make sure you turn your clock ahead. Tomorrow morning at 1:59 a.m., your clocks, the second later, when it's supposed to be 2 o'clock, will actually jump 1 hour to 3 o'clock. So you will lose 1 hour of sleep. So make sure you go ahead and do this. If you have a clock that doesn't actually change time for daylight saving times, if you have a phone, have a computer, it should do it on its own. But if you don't, and you're using an older clock, make sure you go and do that. We're also hearing from multiple health experts, and I want to address some COVID news for today, because I think I've been skipping out on COVID news, and this is weird. Honestly, this is weird, because we've been talking about COVID and the pandemic for 2 years. But over the past couple of weeks, since the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict came about, a lot of people aren't talking about COVID. And again, I feel like I've done a disservice to you guys because I haven't mentioned it, but here's what we know. Health experts say that we are transitioning away from this pandemic, and that's good news. But they also state that the best way to know if we are heading towards a new normal is through the death rate per day. They say that having COVID deaths be fewer than 165 per day will be key, because this is the same number that we see from influenza per year. Okay, we see about 50,000 cases, 50,000 deaths per year due to the influenza or the flu. So they say that's a key number. Here's the problem. We are currently sitting at 1,260 deaths per day. This was as of the other day. So we are still a little bit ways away from our true goal, but experts say that we are getting there. The only problem is we need to provide better filtration systems to schools and public areas. We need to make sure people are wearing the right mask in locations where masks are still required. We need to make sure that people do have the ability to get COVID tests. Maybe not for free, but at least if they pay a little bit of money, $5 for a COVID test is reasonable. Paying $20 is just not acceptable. So that's what health experts are saying at this time. But as always, as we know more regarding stimulus, COVID, the pandemic, or what's going on with Russia, I promise I will bring you all the latest news and updates. Again, just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.